Ladies and gentlemen, good day. Hope you're doing very well. It is your host, Gary, the expert. I help men and women get out of depression and a little bit of addiction, as they sometimes most likely go hand in hand. And I've experienced addiction and depression before. I'm grateful to say I am over them things. And in this episode, I'm going to answer two questions. The two questions are based around depression, and one of them being, how do you get rid of depression? And what are basic signs of depression? And I will add in a little bit more of advanced signs of depression. But the first question is, how do you get rid of depression? And I'm going to answer for how I got rid of my depression. Well, the first thing is I had to have awareness. Easy, very simple. I had awareness that I was depressed. All came crashing down. It all hit this breaking point, this turning point, this rock bottom, this whatever bottom you want to call it. All of them sentences are a common experience, I would say, where you're fed up of being fed up, where you're done with being done, and you actually wanted to change a certain thing about your life. And I wanted to change. And I was almost forced to change. So I had awareness, and then I asked for help. And when I asked for help, I went to the doctor. The doctor didn't say, I don't remember them saying I am clinically diagnosed with depression. I think they might have said, sounds like depression. My auntie came with me. So I went to the doctor, and then I went and I got therapy. So how do you get rid of depression? The answer is there's not one way. There's many ways, which is great news, not sad news, not wow, too overwhelming. No, there's trillions of ways. But I have a caveat to the end of this sentence or the end of this question that is not going to be helpful, but it should be helpful. So I went and got therapy, and I've done a lot of personal work. So of course you have conversations with the therapist. I don't even recall half of I don't recall 90% of the conversations I had with the therapist, but I do recall making consistent progress throughout my journey, which was great. Which is great. But I put in a lot of work. What do I mean by putting in a lot of work? I put in a lot of work as in I have a session, and then I'd say I'd go do something, and I go do that thing. If it's going to go reading, or if it's going to go journaling, or if it's going to go meditating, or even exercising. I did those things. And I did them with relentless enthusiasm. I was very excited to do something along the lines of exercise, walk the dog. I was excited to go for reading and do some reading around mindset, psychology. A great book that I always recommend is The Chin Paradox by Dr. Steve Peters. Quality book. I'm not going to spoil it for you, let's say. But in this time in my life, I was scared. Scared to the core of my life. Most scared I've ever been in my life. I was traumatized. I was a victim. I had visions that were very unhelpful, nasty. Scared. Even when I was reading the book, I was scared. So I went on this journey of personal development, started growing myself along with this helpful development from therapy. And I'm grateful to say that I've recovered. But here's the caveat that I was talking about. Here's the little icing on the cake. That you can do all the reading, the journal, and the meditating, the therapy. But if at the end of the day you say it hasn't worked, then you are reinforcing and continuing down the road of it not working. So this is let's say, deeper level conversation. And what I mean by that is that you could have 15 different therapists and you could get the best insights from the world. But if you inside of yourself are not being able to stand on your own two own feet and saying, I've beaten this, or I'm strong enough without this, then you are in trouble. You're in trouble. So the truth is that, when is enough healing enough? This question has blown my mind recently. When is enough development enough development? When is enough help enough? When is enough wishing, praying, or hoping enough? When is enough belief enough? I'll go back to the first one. When is enough healing enough? This is a fantastic question. And there's no way I can tell you. You're the expert of your life. I'm Gary, the expert of my life. And if I can sit here with, depression or trauma or, a negative addiction. And if I can stand on my 2 feet, I can look you directly in the eye and I can stand firm and I can go, I've beaten that. That is the only piece of advice, ideology, psychology, paradigm I need to have. I don't need to have your input. I don't need to have the next person's input. I need to be able to say that to myself and know that that's true inside of myself. I've beaten my addiction of cocaine. Fact. I don't need to do that again. Fact. And I often say, you can drugs 95% bad, 5% good. Call a spade a spade. 95 definitely outweighs the 5%. So when is enough healing enough? Or when have you recovered from depression? Or how do you get rid of your depression? Ultimately, when you have said, I am not depressed. That is that is it. But you can't say that while you're in the middle of self-harming. You can't say that when you're in the middle of hurting yourself. You can't say that while you're being aggressive or spiteful or depressing to other people. You can't say that. See, I can say I am not depressed because of the environment I'm in, because of the psychology I'm in, because of how I impact people, how I impact myself, how I impact the world. I know I'm not depressed. And then, you might go into a random question, thought bubble of, well, how do I know if I'm depressed? And this question is a quote unquote valid question, but it's not a question that needs to be explored. And why do I say that? Because you're almost looking backwards in the rearview mirror trying to drive your car forward. You really need to look forward and go, I'm gonna go, how can I impact the world positively instead of how do I know if I'm depressed? It's a decent question. I'm not going to lie. How do I know if I'm depressed? I like it. I actually do like the question. How do I know if I'm depressed? And what I would say is that you are having negative conversations. You're not caring about the relationships you're having in front of you. You loss of appetite. We can talk all about the symptoms then, and the symptoms of the sex drive, anhedonia, like feeling of just reduced feeling for anything. Or you could have weight gain or weight loss. Or you could have suicidal ideation or unaliving oneself. I don't think I say the S word on here, but there's a vast amount of reasons or understandings or data points that you'd be able to say if you're depressed. And if you can say, no, I don't have those, you can check that box. I think we all have them a little bit. Like, you might not actually care about this person that you're speaking to. And that might be a harsh sentence. That might be an extreme example. But, maybe they're treating you bad. That doesn't mean you have depression. I mean, if you're doing it on a general basis to people you love or should be in a quote unquote should, family, friends, intimate partners, well then you're in charted territory, if that's the right sentence. So how do you get rid of depression? At the end of the day, when you can say, I am not depressed. But to lead up to that moment, you might need to do therapy, you might need to do medication, you might need to do some spiritual practices, you might need to try the herbal medicine, you might need to do any single thing that it takes to get you there. I think I'm a firm believer in, the medical industry is fantastic. Great developments over there. But if I could get rid of your cancer with some herbal spice from the middle of the Congo forest, would you take that? And the answer would be, of course. And that's a quote unquote mystical experience. It's a quote unquote new age medicine. So I really think people are in the mindset of whatever it really takes rather than I'm going to go down a particular route and avenue. So whatever it really takes to get you to a place where you say in your own mind, I am not depressed, and that's that. And your depressed mind might come in and go, yeah, you're not depressed. Don't just listen to him, you're not depressed. But you really have to look at how you're playing yourself out in the world. Are you playing yourself out positively or negatively on a day-to-day basis? Then you'll know if you're depressed. So how do you get rid of it? Whatever way possible, through the avenues I've just mentioned. And then at the end of the day, you can own an identity where you say, I'm stronger than depression, or I am not depressed. No, I'm not depressed, not the greatest identity, but I am confident, I am courage, I am enthusiasm, I am positive. And those identities are much better to associate yourself with. Now, next question. What are the basic signs of depression? Well, the basic signs of depression, of course, are going to be very intimately linked with this last question. Of course, how do we get rid of depression? Well, How do you know if you have depression? It's a good question, right? It's a valid question. So basic signs of depression. Well, the DSM-5 diagnostic statistics and manual, which has been ever evolving over the many years that's been going on, I think around 60, 70 years right at this stage. And you're on version 5 here. You need to have 9 symptoms. You need to be present with at least 5 of those over the last 2 weeks. So the basic signs, having low mood, would that be a shocker in terms of depression? No, having incredible sadness or just a longing sadness for at least 2 weeks. Fluctuates in your appetite, thoughts or urges to unalive oneself. And these are a couple of the symptoms. Like lack of sex drive or enthusiasm, or disassociating with past hobbies or past even friends. Yeah. You want to have a couple of these, aka you want to have 5 of these, and then you could be quote unquote diagnosed with depression. And then I would advise, don't just get one diagnosis, maybe get 2, and that will help you a little bit. People have been misdiagnosed and then been thrown on medication, which, in this day and age, becoming more and more popular. It's not a bad thing. I support it, but maybe you don't need it. And if you're being convinced by a doctor that loves giving out medicine, then you're probably going to get it. You go to a mechanic to fix your car, you go to the doctor for medicine, right? Normally. So they're obviously going to be inclined to do such a thing to help you out. And they're doing it from good nature. And if you go to a therapist, they're doing it from good nature to help you. They don't mean to hurt you in any way, shape, or form, even if a sentence doesn't resonate with you or it feels like it attacks your ego. Sometimes the hardest truths, I needed the hardest truths when I was addicted. I needed those hardest truths. The world didn't revolve around me. People are actually leaving my life. Those 2 truths hit me like a stone wall. I ran into a stone wall full speed. Hard. Painful. Deep. Not pleasant at all. I can assure you that. But I tell you, it's made me a lot more aware, a lot more grateful, a lot more happier. So, yeah, if you go to someone and you're not vibing, that might not be the worst thing in the world, because they might tell you the things that you need to hear rather than, baby coddle you, which is okay too. Some people need that. So some basic signs: you want to have at least at least 5 symptoms over the last 2 weeks. Like I mentioned, incredible sadness or just a longing for sadness, loss of appetite or increase of appetite, unaliving self, some possible urges of that, like lack of sex drive in any way, shape, or form. There's 5 symptoms. There's a couple more that slip my mind, but there's a tremendous amount. Basic signs: how you're interacting with the world via those symptoms, and unfortunately, I don't think it's a symptom in any way, shape, or form, but just your psychology, just your mindset in general. Of course, depression is a mindset where basically anything is black and gray, and it's gray and black. That's not fun. It's not fun at all. But it sucks because it convinces you of lies, a tremendous amount of lies. And the more lies you listen to, the more you're going to believe them. Unfortunately, I think Hitler says that quote: when you tell a lie big enough, long enough, and repeated it enough, people eventually start believing it. And that's what the mind does when you're depressed. Basic signs: how you're interacting with the world, how you're interacting with yourself, you're hurting yourself, and your energy, vibrance, your outlook on life, or optimistic, pessimistic, half full, half empty. Pretty basic signs. Let's move into more advanced level signs. The advanced level signs would be around, are you harming yourself? Of course, that's a very, very important indicator for an advanced level of depression. If you are self-harming, I don't believe you actually wanted to do that. And in the moment, your mind will convince you, yes, that is the right thing to do, or yes, that is what you actually want to do, or that is your quote unquote escape. They're all lies. It's all BS. Wanting to unalive yourself would be a thought, but to pursue it is crazy. It's more crazy than actually continuing to do that. And I've lost my dad to unaliving oneself. I've had them similar urges when I was depressed and addicted. It's absolutely diluted in the wrong way. I believe we are very much uh, on the borderline of delusion in terms of positivity, in terms of negativity, in terms of outlooks on things. And we're blinded by a lot of things. So we have to make a certain judgment from a certain place. Other signs would be leaving friend groups, just leaving friend groups, maybe not even leaving, but just withdrawing, just moving back from those friend groups and not talking or not wanting to go out regularly. And that would be a quote unquote advanced level, advanced sign. Another one might be, those visions I talked about when I was depressed. It's those unhelpful, unhelpful catastrophizing of the worst case scenario from this person, place, thing, situation, event, time. Any of those, you're creating a vision in your mind that's the worst. It's the worst. Another symptom that I didn't mention is feeling guilt or shame or unworthiness. And that manifests itself in you've done something in your past, which you've all done something in our past. I'm not saying that thing that you're thinking of right now because that's how easy it is to trigger that thing because it's so emotionally impacted. I'm not saying it's that thing. I'm just saying in general, we've done things in our past. And however you view that thing is the most important thing. And if you view it as guilt, shame, well, that guilt and shame can just keep building up. It can literally just keep building up and then it gets on top of you. And then the lies are very easy for you to come in. It's almost like if you're being very unhealthy with your body, you open up so many more doors of unhealthy, of sickness. Literally, you're treating your body terribly. More doors of sickness gets opened rather than more doors of healthiness. Healthiness is a word. So those visions are terrible, and guilt and getting on top of yourself is terrible too. I hope that in this video you gained some insights, particularly around at least what we've just talked about, the advanced level signs of depression, leaving your friends groups, possibly leaving work, right? That is definitely an advanced sign of depression, almost borderline moving into unaliving oneself. So keep an eye out for that. Selling possessions, by the way, just remember that one as well, is a key indicator of one person wanting or starting in the journey of unaliving oneself. So if you see a person leaving their work, selling their things, they're selling their items, they could be moving into uncharted territory. They're advanced level signs of depression. You move into basic signs. We talked about the guilt would be a symptom. We talked about having low mood, of course. Maybe not participating in certain activities, losing sex drive or anhedonia, not having a feeling or urge or care for anything, particularly in any realm. And they'd be basic signs. And then you move back into the other question of, how do we get rid of depression? How we get rid of depression is, at the end of the day, if you can say the goal is I am not depressed and stand there confidently and strong, well, then you're not depressed. But how you get to that point, how you do actually get rid of the depression or how you recover from depression is very much indicating in your modality. And your modality could be through, if it's therapy and that works great for you, amazing. If you go to the doctors and the doctors help you with some medication or some advice or some tips, well, that's amazing. That's great too. If you go to some sort of exercise routine and that helps you, amazing. You don't need any other additional support from people or persons, amazing. If you go do your audiobooks or reading and that changes your life, transforms your life, there is a million doors of you to walk through to get rid of your depression. There is no one exact door, which again is great, but also not great. The thing is, when you do something like reading, your depressed mind will say, this isn't doing anything. This is useless. And that's what the depressed mind does when you're probably with a therapist, or if you have been with a therapist. Nah, this isn't working. And then that just plays over and over and over, and then you believe it. Just like Hitler said, you tell a lie big enough, long enough, and repeat it enough, people end up believing it. When you tell yourself a lie, you end up believing it. The world's better off without you. How much times do we hear that sentence? The world is not better off without you. But the more you say that to yourself, the more it's going to become bigger, bigger in your mind, and then it's really making an imprint on your day-to-day living. Before I go, the last thought there, I suppose, is identity. If you are depressed, you are depressed, you are depressed. If you are, well, then that is a certain character, that is a certain trait, that is a certain lifestyle. And if you are associating with that criteria, that sentence, that operating system, if that is your program, that's in your mind, you are naturally going to act out in accordance with that. So we need to associate with a different identity. And that different identity must be something along the lines of greatness. Maybe that's your identity you want to go for, greatness. Or maybe it's something along the lines of role model. Or maybe it's something along the lines of a helper or inspiring in some way, shape, or form. I know that's very important to me, to inspire people and also be a great role model. And one last thing is that I find funny that, when is enough healing, enough healing? So let's say you've healed your journey of trauma, but I go, oh yeah, but do you remember that time when you did this? And then that triggers off a bunch of things. So when I say, you want to be a good role model, your oppressed mind's going to be like, how could you be a good role model if you did this, if you did that, if you did this? That's always going to be there. Your thing that's happened in the past, things, plural, that happened in the past, that's always going to be there. And either you can crumble with those things. Again, if you crumble with those things, you're open more doors of depression. Or if you fight against it and you say, or even if you just walk with it, or you just dance with it, or you just move with it, whatever that sentence is, whatever you want to use as your shift of energy, your shift of momentum, your shift of identity, whatever you want to, whatever catchphrase works best for you. Your new identity being, yes, I messed up. Drugs are 95% bad, 5% good. Yin and yang, good and bad, bad and good, positive and negatives, negative and positive. There's always going to be a door that I could choose with you. And with that door, I could open up a tin of worms, a can of worms, if they say that. But you could do the same for me. And you could do the same for any single person that walks around. That's an important lesson I learned as well, that I am suffering, but literally so is every single person walking down the road. And you will have happy people, but if we open up their tin of beans, their tin of worms, they would be suffering right in front of us. So I hope this episode, and I hope you can go forward and impact people's day more positively, because you know that they are suffering. And from there, there's actually a very strong place for you to serve and help, because then it won't affect you, or you can maybe think bigger instead of thinking about your problems, think about the bigger problems in terms of this person has problems and you want to help them in some way, shape, or form. Maybe that's attachment. Maybe that's helper identities. I have no clue, but I think it's a good starting, helpful block, at least for me. I hope it is for you. Hope you have an amazing day. This is Gary the Expert. Check out GaryTheExpert.com. If you want to book a session in with me, go ahead and book a session with me. I'm more than happy to have a chat with you, and we can possibly dig into some things that is going to be, transformative for your life. I'll leave what I was going to say till the next episode. So I'll see you in the next episode. My name is Gary the Expert. Thank you. See you then.